First Alert Weather with Chief Meteorologist Jennifer Robbins.
Hi everyone, I'm First Alert Meteorologist Jennifer Robbins in the Digital Center, and we're tracking Calvin. Here we are about 48 hours out, and it looks like we will be seeing impacts as early as tomorrow night. Taking a closer look at the timeline of Calvin, Hawaii Island will bear the most impacts. We're talking about rain, also bigger surf there, and maybe even some windy conditions ahead of Calvin, as there will be a tight pressure gradient with the trade winds picking up there. So some wind alerts will be up. And we also have tropical force winds that will be mainly over the ocean, but we'll likely be seeing maybe some isolated gusty conditions there. So Hawaii Island likely seeing that come our way Tuesday in the overnight hours through Wednesday morning. Maui County, that will be sliding on down at 7 o'clock, but then it starts pulling more towards the south and then losing steam, becoming a tropical depression, in fact. So the far western end of the state, not expected to see major impacts, but we'll have to be on guard still because some thunderstorms could develop along what's called converging winds. That's winds that come together. Kind of think of it like merging traffic into one lane, like the H1 Middle Street merge. And as traffic merges into one lane, it piles up, and that causes lift in the atmosphere in this regards, and that could cause some heavy downpours here and there. But initially, seeing those impacts over Hawaii Island, 4 to 12 inches of rain a possibility, then spreading towards the west as the day progresses on Wednesday. East Shores surf is going to be big, but not that big. And you can see tropical storm warning is now up for Hawaii Island. So the island of Hawaii, we're talking about winds about 20 to 30, a little bit higher than that at times. Gusty conditions. Rainfall is going to really pick up during the overnight hours of Tuesday into Wednesday morning. So sunrise will likely be a good source for you as you tune in with Guy Hoggy and team to check out the conditions there. And we have Casey Lunn that's on island right now. He's on island. He's going to be talking about the preparation. So that's what he's going to be doing the next couple of days to make sure you're prepared and see how all the elements are. And as we take a closer look, we're tracking Calvin's latest track here. And a lot of people are asking, can it make that hard right turn if it's taking a south track? Well, right now we have steering winds, that area of high pressure that continues to steer it just south of the island. Also, it's a much weaker system. So it's a shallow system we're talking about. So we're not expecting it to really be carried up in those winds and then be making that right turn as of now. It is going to be staying clear of most of the island chain, but we'll be watching the closest pass, at least for Hawaii Island. And take a closer look at the spaghetti plot. These are various weather models, in fact, and it's compacted in what's called a cone of uncertainty. And you can see some of those outliers take it a little farther to its north, some of them well to the south. So it's going to fall somewhere in between, it looks like. And so when we look at these weather models and really analyze them, the best guess will be that center line. But anywhere in that cone of uncertainty, this storm could actually make landfall, or even towards the south, not make landfall. So we'll be watching this from start to finish as we have been, as it started over the coast of Mexico earlier. So that cone of uncertainty, like we're talking about, here we are 48 hours out. So there is still an error there. So within 24 hours, about a 30-mile radius error, and then 70 miles within 48 hours. And that's where we fall right now. And within 5 days, as you can see, when these storm systems are usually prompted, it's about a 230-mile error. So a large error the farther you go out in time. And then we're actually going to scale back on that error closer in time within that 24-hour window. Things are looking pretty good. Like we'll have a better understanding of what's going to happen, especially 24 hours out. But within the storm center, it will remain in the track 65% of the time. So that's something we'll be watching in days ahead. And also the storm is divided into quadrants, as you know. So the big question in all of this, where is that front right quadrant going to be landing? or coming really close by. And that front right quadrant is important because it's associated with substantial rain, and that's near the heart of the system. You can see the eye of the storm there, and at the right of it, there's winds that pile up, and also a lot of vertical lift in that quadrant, and that's why they're associated with a lot of rain and thunderstorms as well. The back right, usually significant winds. The back left is the weakest part of the storm, and that's actually going to be over the ocean, and the front left, significant storm surge. So this is a much different storm than what we saw last week when it peaked as a Hurricane 3. or Category 3 status. Now we're seeing it as a weaker tropical storm. It's a much more shallow system like we've been talking about. It's going to be taking a little bit more of a south track. So as we divide it up into quadrants, still that front right quadrant is going to be likely impacting parts of Hawaii Island. So be watching that within the next 36 hours as it passes on by. And then you can see for the rest of us, it looks like a south track. So all of these elements are coming together. Not a big wind maker, but a big rain maker for us. Storm surge is going to be on the low end, so not a big concern. And that's because the intensity of the system is really falling apart. So that has been our saving grace. It's running into cooler waters, but there's still going to be pockets of waters where it's going to be getting a little bit of fuel. Also, drier air it's running into and what's called wind shear that acts like a blender and cuts into the storm and makes it a much more shallow system. And that's what we've been seeing. So like I said, the anatomy of this storm is much different compared to what we saw last week when it was a Category 3 hurricane. Now as a tropical storm, it's much weaker and also shallow like we're talking about. So keep it tuned here. Your First Alert team, great tool to have, our interactive radar, our Weather Now app, and also our hurricane tracker. And this is going to pave the way to a busier hurricane season that we're expecting. It's the first of potentially many that could come our way, at least close to the islands and crossing into the Central Pacific. So wishing you blue skies and much aloha after all of this clears. We'll be keeping a very close eye on Calvin and that First Alert Weather Day on Wednesday.